Opportunities don't happen, you create them. Good morning, dear students. Now let us see Unit 1 Supplementary. God sees the truth but waits by Leo Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy was a Russian writer and was considered as the greatest authors of all time. From 1902 to 1906, he had received Nobel Prize in Literature. He was born on 9th September 1828. He was a novelist, short story writer, playwright, and essayist. His notable works, War and Peace, Anna Karenina, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, The Kingdom of God is Within You, Resurrection. He died on 20th November 1910. The main characters in this story is Ivan Dmitrich Aksionov, his wife, and Makar Semyonich. Here is a story about faith, forgiveness, freedom, and acceptance of a young merchant named Aksionov, who was sent to prison for a crime he didn't commit. The theme of the story is guilt, forgiveness, faith, conflict, freedom, and acceptance. The main character, Aksionov, had spent 26 years in prison for a crime which he didn't commit. He was able to forgive the man who did commit the crime. Faith in God enables one to forgive an evildoer. In the town of Vladimir lived a young merchant named Ivan Dmitrich Aksionov. He had 2 shops and a house of his own. Aksionov was a handsome, fair-haired, curly-headed fellow full of fun and very fond of singing. When quite a young man, he had been given to drink and was riotous when he had had too much. But after he married, he gave up drinking except now and then. Ivan Dmitrich Aksionov was a handsome, fair-haired, curly-headed fellow. He was always enthusiastic. He was very fond of singing. When he was young, he used to drink, but after marriage, he gave it up. One summer, Aksionov was going to the Nizhny fair, and as he bade goodbye to his family, his wife said to him, "Ivan Dmitrich, do not start today. I have had a bad dream about you." Aksionov laughed and said, "You are afraid that when I get to the fair, I shall go on a spree." Aksionov's wife dreamt that when her husband returned from the town, he had grey hair, which stated clearly that he would return home only after a long period of time. He said that it was a sign of luck and added that he would bring many gifts to her while returning. His wife replied, "I do not know what I am afraid of. All I know is that I had a bad dream. I dreamt you returned from the town, and when you took off your cap, I saw that your hair was quite grey." Aksionov laughed. "That's a lucky sign," said he. "See if I don't sell out all my goods and bring you some presents from the fair." So he said goodbye to his family and drove away. Axiano's wife dreamt that when her husband returned from the town, he had grey hair, which stated clearly that he would return home only after a long period of time. He said that it was a sign of luck and added that he would bring many gifts to her while returning. When he had travelled halfway, he met a merchant whom he knew, and they put up at the same inn for the night. They had some tea together and then went to bed in adjoining rooms. It was not Axiano's habit to sleep late, and wishing to travel while it was still cool, he aroused his driver before dawn and told him to put in the horses. During his journey, he met another merchant who was his friend. They checked into an inn. They had tea together and slept in adjacent rooms at night. Axiano left the inn before dawn to travel to the fair while it was still cool. Then he made his way across to the landlord of the inn, who lived in a cottage at the back, paid his bill and continued his journey. He directly met the landlord of the inn, paid his bill and continued his journey. When he had gone about 25 miles, he stopped for the horses to be fed. Axiano rested a while in the passage of the inn. Then he stepped out into the porch and, ordering a samovar to be heated, got out his guitar and began to play. When he had crossed about 25 miles, he stopped to feed his horse. He took rest in the passage of an inn. Then he went inside and ordered a samovar to be heated. Samovar means a Russian metal urn for making tea. And then he began to play his guitar. Suddenly, a troika drove up with tinkling bells and an official alighted, followed by 2 soldiers. He came to Axiano and began to question him, asking him who he was and whence he came. Suddenly, a troika is a Russian vehicle pulled by a team of 3 horses. A troika came there with tinkling bells, and an officer was followed by 2 soldiers, came directly to Axiano, and he began to inquire Axiano that from where he was coming and who he was. Axiano answered him fully and said, "Won't you have some tea with me?" But the official went on cross-questioning him and asking him, "Where did you spend last night? Were you alone or with a fellow merchant? Did you see the other merchant this morning? Why did you leave the inn before dawn?" Axiano answered his questions and welcomed him to share tea with him. But the officer went on asking many questions, such as where he had spent his previous night, where he was alone there or with any other merchant, and he also added that whether he saw that merchant that day morning. He also asked Axiano why he left the inn earlier in the morning. Axiano wondered why he was asked all these questions, but he described all that had happened and then added, "Why do you cross-question me as if I were a thief or a robber? I am traveling on business of my own, and there is no need to question me." Axiano answered all the questions and asked the officer why he was asking such questions to him. He also said he was not a robber or thief, and he said that he was traveling on the purpose of his business. Then the official, calling the soldiers, said, I am the police officer of this district, and I question you because the merchant with whom you spent last night has been found with his throat cut. We must search your things. The officer explained that he was a police officer and he said that the merchant with whom he had spent last night had been found with his throat cut, and so he came there to search his things. They entered the house. The soldiers and the police officer unstrapped Axiano's luggage and searched it. Suddenly, the officer drew a knife out of a bag, crying, Whose knife is this? Axiano looked, and seeing a blood-stained knife taken from his bag, he was frightened. How is it there is blood on this knife? The soldiers and the police officer opened Axiano's luggage and searched, and they found a blood-stained knife there. Axiano tried to answer, but could hardly utter a word and only stammered, I don't know, not mine. Then the police officer said, This morning, the merchant was found in bed with his throat cut. You're the only person who could have done it. The house was locked from inside, and no one else was there. Here is this blood-stained knife in your bag, and your face and manner betray you. Tell me how you killed him and how much you stole. He stammered. The officer explained that the merchant found in bed with his throat cut. He said that the house was locked inside, and so Axiano should have murdered him and stolen his things. Axiano swore that he had not done it, that he had not seen the merchant after they had tea together, that he had no money except 8,000 rubles of his own, and that the knife was not his. But his voice was broken, his face pale, and he trembled with fear as though he went guilty. Axiano promised that he had not done it, and also he had not seen the merchant that morning. He said that he was having only 8,000 rubles of his own, and the knife the officer took from his bag was not his. His voice was broken and he began to tremble. The police officer ordered the soldiers to bind Axiano and to put him in the cart. As they tied his feet together and flung him into the cart, Axiano crossed himself and wept. His money and goods were taken from him, and he was sent to the nearest town and imprisoned there. The police officer commanded to tie Axiano, and he was taken to the nearby town and imprisoned. All his things were taken from him. Enquiries as to his character were made in Vladimir. The merchants and other inhabitants of that town said that in former days he used to drink and waste his time, but that he was a good man. Then the trial came on. He was charged with murdering a merchant from Ryazan and robbing him of 20,000 rubles. They began to inquire about Axiano in Vladimir. The people said he used to drink in his young age, but now he was good. Now the court case came on. Axiano was punished for killing the merchant from Ryazan and stealing 20,000 rubles. He was in despair and did not know what to believe. Her children were all quite small. One was a baby at her breast. Taking them all with her, she went to the town where her husband was in jail. At first, she was not allowed to see him, but after much begging, she obtained permission from the officials and was shaken to him. When she saw her husband in prison dress and in chains, shut up with thieves and criminals, she fell down and did not come to her senses for a long time. Then she drew her children to her and sat down near him. She told him of things at home and asked about what had happened to him. He told her all, and she asked, "What can we do now?" Axiana's wife met him in the prison. At first, she was not allowed to see him. Later, she got permission. She fainted on seeing Axiana. She asked Axiana what they can do then. "We must petition the Tsar not to let an innocent man perish." His wife told him that she had sent a petition to Tsar, but it had not been accepted. Axiana did not reply, but only looked downcast. Then his wife said, "It was not for nothing I dreamt your hair had turned grey. You remember? You should not have started that day." And passing her fingers through his hair, she said, "Vanya, dearest, tell your wife the truth. Was it not you who did it?" Axiana asked his wife to send a petition to Tsar. Tsar is the Emperor of Russia. She said that she had done it already, but it was rejected. He looked discouraged. She made him to remember her dream on the day of his departure. She also asked him to say the truth whether he had murdered that merchant. "So you do suspect me," said Axiana, and hiding his face in his hands, he began to weep. Then a soldier came to say that the wife and children must go away, and Axiana said goodbye to his family for the last time. Axiana asked his wife whether she was judging him. He hid his face and began to weep. Then a soldier said that the wife should move away from that place. Axiana said goodbye to his family, and that was the last time he met his family. When they were gone, Axiana recalled what had been said, and when he remembered that his wife also had suspected him, he said to himself, "It seems that only God can know the truth. It is to Him alone we must appeal, and from Him alone expect mercy." And Axiana wrote no more petitions, gave up all hope, and only prayed to God. He was dejected that his wife too suspected him. He felt that only God could show mercy. So he gave up sending petitions and only prayed to God. Axiana was condemned to be flogged and sent to the mines. So he was flogged with a knot, and when the wounds made by the knot were healed, he was driven to Siberia with other convicts. Axiana was punished and was pegged with the stick or belt and sent to the mines to work. When his wounds got healed, he was sent to Siberia with other criminals. For 26 years, Axiana lived as a convict in Siberia. His hair turned white as snow, and his beard grew long, thin, and grey. All his mirth went. He stooped, he walked slowly, spoke little, and never laughed, but he often prayed. 26 years he lived as a criminal in Siberia. His hair turned white as snow, his beard grew long, thin and grey. He stooped, that is, bent down. He began to walk very, very slowly. He spoke little to others and forgot laughing, but often what he did was praying to God. In prison, Axiano learned to make boots and earned a little money, with which he bought the lives of the saints. He read this book, and there was light enough in the prison. And on Sundays, in the prison church, he read the lessons and sang in the choir, for his voice was still good. He learned to make boots, got money through that, and bought a book, The Lives of the Saints. He read that book when there was enough light in the prison. On Sundays, in the prison church, he sang songs in the choir and read the lessons from this book. The prison authorities liked Axiano for his meekness, and his fellow prisoners respected him. They called him grandfather and the saint. When they wanted to petition the prison authorities about anything, they always made Axiano their spokesman. And when there were quarrels among the prisoners, they came to him to put things right and to judge the matter. The prison authorities liked him for his gentleness, and the other convicts respected him and called him as grandfather and the saint. When there were quarrels, the other prisoners came to him to set things right and to judge the matter. No news reached Axiano from his home, and he did not even know if his wife and children were still alive. One day, a fresh gang of convicts came to the prison. In the evening, the old prisoners collected round the new ones and asked them what towns or villages they came from and what they were sentenced for. Among the rest, Axiano sat down near the newcomers and listened with downcast air to what was said. He got no news about his family. He did not know whether they were still alive. One day, a gang of prisoners came to the prison. The old prisoners surrounded the new prisoners and asked them from where they were coming. Axiano was also sitting and listening to them. One of the new convicts, a tall, strong man of 60 with a closely cropped grey beard, was telling the others what he had been arrested for. Well, friends, he said, I only took a horse that was tied to a sledge, and I was arrested and accused of stealing. I said I had only taken it to get home quicker and had then let it go. Besides, the driver was a personal friend of mine. So I said, it's all right. No, said they, you stole it. But how or where I stole it, they could not say. I once really did something wrong and ought by rights to have come here long ago. But that time I was not found out. Now I have been sent here for nothing at all. Yeah, but lies, I'm telling you. I have been to Siberia before, but I did not stay long. One among them, who was almost 60, began to tell his story. He said that he had taken a horse from its sledge, and he also added that it was his own friend's horse. Even though after reaching his place, he let the horse to go, he was accused for stealing the horse. He also said that he had done many wrong things before and he was not punished for that. But he had visited Siberia before but had not stayed there long. Where are you from? Asked someone. From Vladimir. My family are of that town. My name is Makar and they also call me Semyonich. Axiano raised his head and said, Tell me, Semyonich, do you know anything of the merchants Axiano of Vladimir? Are they still alive? Know them? Of course, I do. The Axianos are rich, though their father is in Siberia, a sinner like ourselves, it seems. As for you, Granddad, how did you come here? One among them asked him from where he was coming. He said that he was Makar from Vladimir, and they also call him as Semyonich. Aksionow raised his head and asked Makar whether he knew anything about the merchants Aksionov of Vladimir. He said they were very rich, even though their father was in Siberia, and he asked Aksionov who he was. Aksionov did not like to speak of his misfortune. He only sighed and said, "For my sins, I have been in prison these 26 years. What sins? Asked Makar Semyonich. But Aksionov only said, Well, I must have deserved it. He sighed and said that he was in the prison of Siberia for 26 years for his sins. He asked what sins he had committed. He would have said no more, but his companions told the newcomers how Aksionov came to be in Siberia. How someone had killed a merchant and had put the knife among Aksionov's things, and Aksionov had been unjustly condemned. The other prisoner said that he had not committed any sin. Instead, someone had killed a merchant and kept the knife in his bag. When Makar Semyonich heard this, he looked at Aksionov, slapped his own knee, and exclaimed, "Well, this is wonderful, really wonderful. But how old you have grown, Granddad?" On hearing this, he slapped his own knee and said that Aksionov had grown much older. The others asked him why he was so surprised and where he had seen Aksionov before. But Makar Semyonich did not reply. He only said, "It's wonderful that we should meet here, lads." The others asked why he was so surprised and where he had seen Aksionov before. He said that he had met him in that prison only. These words made Aksionov wonder whether this man knew who had killed the merchant. So he said, "Perhaps, Semyonich, you have heard of that affair, or maybe you have seen me before." This made Aksionov to doubt on Makar and asked him whether he had heard about the incident happened to him. How could I help hearing? The word's full of rumors, but it's a long time ago and I have forgotten what I have heard. Perhaps you heard who killed the merchant, asked Aksionov. He replied that he had heard about the rumors and also long time before he had forgotten everything. Makar Semyonich laughed and replied, "It must have been him in whose bag the knife was found. If someone else hid the knife there, he's not a thief till he's caught, as the saying is. How could anyone put a knife into a bag while it was under your head? It would surely have woke you up." Makar Semyonich laughed and said that thief must be the one in whose bag the knife was found out. He also said that if someone had hid the knife in his bag, still he was caught, Aksionov was the thief. He asked Aksionov how could one kill the merchant and keep the knife in his bag without waking him up. When Aksionov heard these words, he felt sure this was the man who had killed the merchant. He rose and went away. All that night, Aksionov lay awake. He felt terribly unhappy and all sorts of images rose in his mind. There was an image of his wife as she was when he parted from her to go to the fair. He saw her as if she were present. Her face and her eyes rose before him. He heard her speak and laugh. Then he saw his children, quite little, as they were at that time, one with a little cloak on, another at his mother's breast. When he heard these words, he felt sure that Makar was the one who killed the merchant and kept the knife in his bag. So he stood and went away from that place. All through the night, he was unable to sleep and felt unhappy. All the images of wife and little children came up to his mind. And then he remembered himself as he used to be, young and merry. He remembered how he sat playing the guitar in the porch of the inn where he was arrested, and how free from care he had been. He saw in his mind the place where he was flogged, the executioner, and the people standing around, the chains, the convicts, all the 26 years of his prison life, and his premature old age. The thought of it all made him so wretched that he was ready to kill himself. He remembered his young stage. He brought back all the images, how he played guitar, how he was arrested, how he was in that prison for 26 years. He felt much unhappy and ready to kill himself. And it's all that villain's doing, thought Aksionov, and his anger was so great against Makar Semyonich that he longed for vengeance, even if he himself should perish for it. He kept repeating prayers all night but could get no peace. During the day, he did not go near Makar Semyonich nor even look at him. He got much anger on Makar. All through the night he prayed but could not get peace. The next day he did not meet Makar nor looked at him. A fortnight passed in this way. Aksionov could not sleep at night and was so miserable that he did not know what to do. 2 weeks passed away. He was so sad and did not know what to do. One night, as he was walking about the prison, he noticed some earth that came rolling out from under one of the shelves on which the prisoners slept. He stopped to see what it was. Suddenly, Makar Semyonich crept out from under the shelf and looked up at Aksionov with a frightened face. Aksionov tried to pause without looking at him, but Makar seized his hand and told him that he had dug a hole under the wall, getting rid of the earth by putting it into his high boots and emptying it out every day on the road when the prisoners were driven to their work. Just you keep quiet, old man, and you shall get out too. If you blab, they'll flog the life out of me, but I will kill you first. One night, Aksionov noticed that Makar digging a hole to escape. Makar threatened Aksionov that he should not reveal the truth to the officer. If he do that, they would flog his life and he would kill him first. Aksionov trembled with anger as he looked at his enemy. He drew his hand away, saying, I have no wish to escape and you have no need to kill me. You killed me long ago. As to telling of you, I may do so or not, as God shall direct. Aksionov looked at him with anger and said that he had killed him before 26 years itself, and he would do what God shows him at time, and moved away from that place. Next day, when the convicts were let out to work, the convoy soldiers noticed that one or other of the prisoners emptied some earth out of his boots. The prison was searched and the tunnel found. The governor came and questioned all the prisoners to find out who had dug the hole. They all denied any knowledge of it. Those who knew would not betray Makar Semyonich, knowing he would be flogged almost to death. At last, the governor turned to Aksionov, whom he knew to be just a man, and said, You are a truthful old man. Tell me before God who dug the hole. Next day, it was found that a hole was dug in the prison and the officers asked other prisoners about it. Even though some knew the truth, did not reveal it. At last, the governor turned to Aksionov and asked him to say the truth. Makar Semyonich stood as if he were quite unconcerned, looking at the governor, not so much as glancing at Aksionov. Aksionov's lips and hands trembled, and for a long time he could not utter a word. He thought, why should I screen him who ruined my life? Let him pay for what I have suffered. But if I tell, they will probably flog the life out of him. And maybe I suspect him wrongly. And after all, what good it would be to me. Axiano thought why he should ruin the life of Makar. Well, old man, repeated the governor, tell me the truth. Who has been digging under the wall? Again and again, the governor asked Axiano to say the truth. Axiano glanced at Makar Semyonovich and said, I cannot say, Your Honor, it is not God's will that I should tell. Do what you like with me. I am your hands. He said that he could not tell the truth and so they could punish him. However much the governor tried, Axiano would say no more, and so the matter had to be left. The governor tried a lot, but he could not get the truth from Axiano. That night, when Axiano was lying on his bed and just beginning to doze, someone came quietly and sat down on his bed. He peered through the darkness and recognized Makar. Axiano was on his bed on that night. Someone came and sat down near his bed. He could recognize that it was Makar. What more do you want of me? Asked Axiano. Why have you come here? He asked him what more he wasted from him. Makar Semyonovich was silent, so Axiano sat up and said, What do you want? Go away, or I will call the god. Makar was silent, so Axiano shouted at him and asked him to move out of that place, otherwise he could call the god. Makar Semyonovich bent close over Axiano and whispered, Ivan Dmitrich, forgive me. What for? Asked Axiano. It was I who killed the merchant and hid the knife among your things. I meant to kill you too, but I heard a noise outside, so I hid the knife in a bag and escaped out of the window. Makar asked Axiano to forgive him as he killed the merchant and kept the knife in his bag. He also said that he thought of killing Axiano also, but as he heard some noise outside, he escaped through the window. Axiano was silent and did not know what to say. Makar Semyonovich slid off the bed shelf and knelt upon the ground. Ivan Dmitrich, said he, forgive me, for the love of God, forgive me. I will confess that it was I who killed the merchant, and you will be released and can go to your home. Axiano was silent, and Makar knelt before him and asked him to forgive him for the love of God. He also said that he would confess and Axiano could be released and go home. It is easy for you to talk, said Axiano, but I have suffered for you these 26 years. Where could I go to now? My wife is dead and my children have forgotten me. I have nowhere to go. Axiano said that Makar could talk easily. His wife had passed away and his children had forgotten him and he had no place to go. Makar Semyonovich did not rise but beat his head on the floor. Ivan Dmitrich, forgive me, he cried. When they flogged me with a knot, it was not so hard to bear as it is to see you now. Yet, you had pity on me and did not tell. For Christ's sake, forgive me, wretch that I am. And he began to sob. Makar said that he could not bear seeing Axiano like this, and even though he could bear the punishment with the knot, he pleaded him to forgive him on Christ's sake. When Axiano heard him sobbing, he too began to weep. God will forgive you, said he. Maybe I am 100 times worse than you. And at these words, his heart grew light and the longing for home left him. He no longer had any desire to leave the prison, but only hoped for his lost child to come. Makar said that he could not bear seeing Axiano like this, and even though he could bear the punishment with the knot, he pleaded him to forgive him on Christ's sake. In spite of what Axianov had said, Marcus Semyonich confessed his guilt. But when the order for his release came, Axianov was already dead. But Makar had relieved the truth, and when the order for Axianov's release came, he was dead. The story suggests that truth always prevails, but one should have the patience to wait for the final result. Truth alone triumphs. At the end of the story, we find that there is a shift from materialism to spiritualism. It is for this reason that Axianov is finally freed from the pain of this world. He joins his Maker, that is, our Lord God. Thank you, students.